everyone. Today's story is Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. Edward Bear, known to his friends as Winnie the Pooh, or Pooh for short, was walking through the forest one day, humming proudly to himself. He had made up a little hum that very morning as he was doing his exercises in front of the mirror. Tra-la-la, tra-la-la, as he stretched up high as he could go, and then tra-la-la, tra-la-la, help, as he tried to reach his toes. After breakfast he had said it over and over to himself until he had learnt it off by heart. And now he was humming it right through. Properly, it went like this. Tra-la-la, 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 rum-tum, tiddle-um-tum. Tiddle-iddle, 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 rum-tum, tiddle-tiddle-um. Well, he was humming this to himself and walking gaily along, wondering what everyone else was doing and what it felt like being someone else, when suddenly he came to a sandy bank, and in the bank was a large hole. Aha, said Pooh, rum-tum, tiddle-um-tum. If I know anything about anything, that hole means rabbit. And rabbit means company. Rum-tum-tum, tiddle-um. And he bent down, put his head into the hole and called out, "Is anyone home?" There was a sudden scuffling noise from inside the hole and then silence. "What I said was, is anybody at home?" called Pooh very loudly. "No," said a voice, and then added, "You needn't shout so loud. I heard you quite well the first time." "Bother," said Pooh. "Isn't there anyone here?" "Nobody." Winnie the Pooh took his head out of the hole and thought for a while. There must be somebody there, because somebody must have said nobody. So he put his head back in the hole and said, "Rabbit, is that you?" "No," said Rabbit in a different sort of voice. "But isn't that Rabbit's voice?" "Don't think so," said Rabbit. "It isn't meant to be." "Oh," said Pooh. He took his head out of the hole and had another think, and then he put it back and said, "Could you very kindly tell me where Rabbit is? He's gone to see his friend Pooh Bear," said the voice. "But this is me," said Bear, very much surprised. "What sort of me?" "Pooh Bear." "Are you sure?" said Rabbit, still more surprised. Quite sure," said Pooh. "Come in then." So Pooh pushed and pushed his way through the hole, and at last he got in. "You were quite right," said Rabbit. "It is you. Glad to see you. Who did you think it was?" "Well, I wasn't sure. You know how it is in the forest. One can't have just anybody coming into one's house. One has to be careful. What about a mouthful of something?" Pooh always liked a little something at 11 o'clock, and he was very glad to see Rabbit getting out the plates and the mugs. And when Rabbit said, "Honey or condensed milk with your bread," he was so excited that he said both. And then, so as not to seem greedy, he said, "Don't bother about the bread." And for a long time after that he said nothing, until at last, humming to himself in a rather sticky voice, he got up, shook Rabbit lovingly by the paw, and said he must be going. "Must you?" said Rabbit politely. "Well," said Pooh, "I could stay a little longer if you, and he tried very hard to look in the direction of the larder. "As a matter of fact," said Rabbit, "I was going out myself." "Oh, well then, I'll be going. Goodbye." "Well, goodbye." Rabbit took the covers off the dishes and said there wasn't any left. "I thought not," said Pooh. "Well, goodbye, I must be going." So he started to climb out of the hole. He pulled with his front paws and he pushed with his back paws, and in a little while his nose was out in the open, and then his ears, and then his front paws, and then his shoulders, and then, "Help!" said Pooh. "I'd better go back." "Oh, bother," said Pooh, "I shall have to go on. I can't do either. Oh, help and bother." Now by this time Rabbit wanted to go for a walk, and finding the front door full, he went out by the back door and said, "Are you stuck?" "No," said Pooh carelessly, "I'm just resting and thinking to myself." "Here, give us a paw." Pooh Bear stretched out a paw, and Rabbit pulled and pulled and pulled. "Ow!" cried Pooh, "you're hurting." "The fact is," said Rabbit, "you're stuck." "It all comes," said Pooh crossly, "of not having doors big enough." "It all comes," said Rabbit sternly, "of eating too much. I thought it at the time, only I didn't like to say anything. I shall have to go and fetch Christopher Robin." Christopher Robin lived at the other end of the forest, and when he came back with Rabbit and saw that the front half of Pooh was there, he said, "Silly old bear," in such a loving voice that everyone felt quite hopeful again. "I was just beginning to think," said Bear, sniffing slightly, That rabbit might never be able to use his front door again, and I should hate that, he said. So should I, said Rabbit. Use his front door again, said Christopher Robin. Of course he'll use his front door again. Good, said Rabbit. If we can't pull you out, Pooh, we might push you back. Rabbit scratched his whiskers and thought. Once Pooh was pushed back, he was back, and of course nobody was happier to see Pooh than he was. But still, there were some lived in trees and some lived underground, and you mean I'd never get out, said Pooh. I mean, said Rabbit, that having got so far, it seems a pity to waste it. Christopher Robin nodded. There's only one thing to be done. We shall have to wait for you to get thin again. How long does getting thin take? Asked Pooh anxiously. About a week, I should think. Can't stay here for a week. You can stay here all right, silly old bear. It's getting you out which is so difficult. We'll read to you, said Rabbit. I hope it doesn't snow, he added. Can I use your back legs to store my towels? Because they're doing nothing, and it will be very convenient just to hang the towels on them. A week, said Pooh gloomily. What about meals? No meals, said Christopher Robin, because of getting thin quicker. But we will read to you. So for a week, Christopher Robin read that sort of book at the north end of Pooh, and Rabbit hung his washing on the south end. And in between, Bear felt himself getting slenderer and slenderer. And at the end of the week, Christopher Robin said, Now! And he took hold of Pooh's front paws, and Rabbit took hold of Christopher Robin, and all of Rabbit's friends and relations took hold of Rabbit, and they all pulled together. And for a long time, Pooh only said, Ow! Oh! And all of a sudden he said, Plop! Just as if a cork were coming out of a bottle. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit's friends and relations went head over heels backwards, and on top of them came Winnie the Pooh, free! So with a nod of thanks to his friends, he went on his walk through the forest, humming proudly to himself. And Christopher Robin looked after him lovingly and said, Silly old bear.